Hello and welcome to another episode of Pastor's Library. This is the channel where we discuss everything to do with theology books, be they books on a reading list for your seminary course, for your bachelor's or master's degrees in theology or biblical studies, or maybe they're just books that you've seen on your vicar's bookshelf, your pastor's office bookshelf, whatever it is. We're here to discuss them. If you have any particular queries or questions, please stick them in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. It costs you nothing and it helps our algorithm. So please like this if you do like it. Please remember to subscribe and to ring the bell, and that will make sure you get to know when we release another episode. So today I want us to talk about favourite commentaries on the book of Exodus. Sometimes I'm surprised how little value people put on the book of Exodus when it's actually an enormous book in its impact in the Old Testament and the New Testament. If you were to look in the New Testament, you will find so many allusions or direct quotes from the book of Exodus. For example, in the book of Revelation, you'll find loads. The truth is that Exodus, talking about coming out of slavery, coming out of bondage, it is so much in keeping with the New Testament message of coming out of the bondage of sin. So never ignore Exodus, besides the fact that it's got some great, exciting stories and rhythms in it. There is so much to learn. So firstly, I just want to say, before we get on to the true commentaries, there are a couple of books to consider, one of which, and probably the first one of which, is Discovering Exodus by Ralph Hawkins. Now, this is part of the Discovering range of books, which up to now, I have to say, I found them all to be good. They are a great overview of the book they serve, and in this case, a great overview of Exodus, giving an in-depth survey, ideal for students, ideal if you're about to start a study of the book, or if you've got to write an essay on Exodus. This is a great starting point because it will help you see the big picture of Exodus and to see how it all fits. So whereas this isn't a commentary, this is an excellent overview of both the structure and the theology of the book, and I entirely endorse this one for you. These Discovering books are quite affordable, really, and they have so much to offer. I think also it's worth just saying this book by John Durham, which is a companion to one we'll talk about later, the Word Biblical Commentary on Exodus. This is Word Biblical Themes on Exodus. And this is not as good as Discovering Exodus, but it's not as expensive. It's quite cheap, actually. And it does have an overview of the theology of the book, the thematic content of the book of Exodus. And I also recommend that. Well, that's partly because I will also recommend his commentary, and the two go together very well. Now, I want to first of all talk about some worth considering commentaries that have something to offer. I have to say that right now I don't think the range of Exodus commentaries out there is as good as it should be. For example, we still don't have the book of Exodus in the New International Commentary on the Old Testament, the NICOTS. I am told that may be with us by the end of the year, if not early into next year. But some commentaries where you would have expected us to have a fallback to, we don't have at the moment. So there will be fresh commentaries to examine over the next 12 to 18 months. And so watch this space, because I will try to highlight them when they emerge. This one, though, is one worth considering. It's the Apollos Old Testament commentary by T. Desmond Alexander. I sort of stumbled on this, actually, And I looked at this and I thought, this looks to me like a very scholarly commentary, an academic commentary. It's got a great bibliography. Its indexing is excellent. The layout is good. It's a very white page, a good business size font. Everything reads clearly. It's presented so well in this bright red cover. In fact, if you take the slipcover off, it's still bright red. This is a commentary well worth consulting. And this is one of those that I do find myself opening the pages of and looking through and seeing what Alexander has to offer. Whereas I wouldn't say this is my favourite, and I'm going to come to my favourites lastly, I would say to you this is a worthwhile addition to anyone's library. And I'm not such a fan of all of the Apollos commentaries, but this one I think is one of the better ones. Now, it would be wrong of me to ever ignore the NIVAC's New International Version Application Commentary. This one is by Peter Enns, well-known guy, always has something to say, something to offer. This series, as you will remember, is mainly emphasising in its title the application that it gives in every passage. I think that that's something which can sometimes be ignored by other commentaries, and this does definitely have something to say, and it's one that I would always look at when I was considering a passage. So that's the NIVAC on Exodus by Peter Enns. Please don't be put off, people, because they suddenly get a bit of bad press. This one is in the Interpreter's Bible Commentary, which has Genesis, Exodus and Leviticus and an overview of the Old Testament Pentateuch. This is a very good commentary. Exodus in this is done by Walter Brueggemann. Now, like I say, he's just had a bit of bad press, but his work here I think is very good. And his overview of Exodus and the way he disseminates the information, I think is excellent. And whereas Brueggemann sometimes for me is a little bit overly Calvinistic in his view of God, this commentary is definitely worth having. Still at the moment on these worth considering ones, I've recently discovered the Kregel Exegetical Library. Now, this is the only commentary I have in the Kregel range, and it's by Dwayne A. Garrett. And this again is scholarly, it's an academic work, it's got good bibliography at the back, and the layout's good, the font's good, the paper's very white. It's a good book for reading, and I find it easy to digest. This is a worthwhile book, and I only recently got my hands on it, and I was looking up something at the time, and I found it answered a question for me. And ultimately, that's what you want from a commentary, isn't it? You want it to answer questions. And so whereas I feel it's too early for me to comment on the range, on the general style of the commentary, I felt that this one was worthwhile and certainly worth considering. That range that I've just gone through are what I would consider well worth having on your library shelf, always worth considering. I now want to go over to my final 5, which are my favourite commentaries on Exodus. And firstly, I want to go with one of the newer ones, which is by Christopher J.H. Wright. And this is the Story of God Bible Commentary. Now, this range, which is all fairly new, has Tremper Longman III as its overall editor of the Old Testament. It's a Zondervan published work, so, it's going to be fairly good. The overarching idea that the gospel is carried throughout all the Bible, and this is part of God's big story, and how does Exodus fit into God's big story? Well, actually, I think Exodus is an ideal book for this type of commentary series, because the themes of Exodus are carried throughout the Bible anyway. So what Wright does here is really emphasise this and help us to find out how Exodus fits into God's plan. I really like this commentary. I recommend it to you. I think it's very good. The language used by Wright is very accessible. I find his wording might still be academic, but it's accessible to anybody with a dictionary, and I really like it. I think these hardbound books, which are still affordable, offer a lot. This is one of those that at the moment I would be quite attached to and would recommend to you. When I last preached through Exodus, this had just come out. This is the New Beacon Bible Commentary on Exodus by Junior Pokrivka. I don't know this author from anything else, but I have to say this commentary is absolutely a breath of fresh air. It's excellent. It comes from the Wesleyan mould in America, and I love all of this series. But as I preached through Exodus, I found myself going back to this and consulting it. And as much as I used others, and I will probably talk about the other one that I used a lot in a moment, this one really makes it for me. And I would just not like to have a library that didn't have this book in. I think Exodus in the New Beacon Bible Commentary is an excellent contribution, and this is great. It's got helpful sidebars, the layout's excellent, there are sort of pop-up pictures from time to time, the bibliography is very clear. This is a quality product, and please consider this as part of your bookshelf on Exodus. Now, I'm going to go now with my final three, and I'm not saying that these are in any particular order, other than perhaps the degree to which I've favourited them. Interpretation is a popular commentary series, particularly in the USA. It's very popular with pastors. I've got the whole series of these. He said looking up there because that's where they are on the wall. And I've got to be honest with you, in the main, I've been disappointed with them. There are certain ones that I really like. I like Job. I like some of the New Testament ones. I'm really, really in love with this one. And if you said to me, interpretation, Stephen, what would you recommend as a commentary? Terence Fretheim. This is absolutely brilliant. Terence was a great thinker. He has left a great legacy to the church in his written works. And I really feel like when I'm reading this, he's sat on my shoulder, speaking the words in my ear. I find him so engaging. I find the measure of the size of his God is absolutely outstanding. I love to read what he talks about here. His meandering through the wilderness wanderings with us is absolutely breathtaking. And so this, which is not an expensive book, and although you can get this hardbound, I've got the paperback here, and this has had a bit of hammer and it's still in good nick, which all proves that some paperbacks are better than others, and I think these are very good. So Terence Fretheim is an Exodus commentary that I never want to be without. It's an absolutely brilliant piece of work. I commend it to you entirely. Now we're coming over to my last two. The Word Biblical Commentaries are just about to get a really good dust off and update by Zondervan, who now own them. I saw the other day on Facebook someone offering a pair of Word Biblical Commentary socks, which had the same patterns on them that the commentaries have, and I thought, well, that's a bit bizarre. But this one by John Durham is a little bit old for you to quote in university essays. I think this is now 1987. And really one talks about quoting for university essays things that are written in the last 30 years. And if you say to me, well, that excludes the great Watson person in 190 blob or something, well, that it doesn't, because a good commentary will refer back to other good commentators. And Durham is excellent. I really have felt in these years of not having quite the range of commentaries that I would have liked to have had, I have felt that Durham was something I could lean on. It has the same problems as all the word biblical commentaries, which I am assured will be resolved in the new printing through Zondervan, which is creamy paper and font not quite as dark on the page as it should be, absolutely no illustrations and no thought to layout at all, designed to put you to sleep. But Durham's words are great. He goes really into the depth of the original language. He absolutely draws on a great deep well of truth. And I really, really like this. I know it's 1987, but there will be an update of this in the next couple of years. Watch out for it. This is one to treasure until the update. And when the update comes out, I will be in there straight away, because Durham has been a great source of strength to me in my studies of the book of Exodus, and I really, really like it. The last one that I want to recommend to you is one which I've not had on my bookshelf for more than a year. This is Douglas Stewart in the New American Commentary on the book of Exodus. Now, the New American Commentary is currently being updated and renamed as the Christian Standard Commentary range. And whereas these say on them that they refer to the New International Version, the new ones are more CSB because they're printed by Holman. I really did find this to be an excellent product. Layout, font, page colour, this wins on every front. But this is a true academic book, and it seems to me very, very well thought out. It's also 2006. So this is a well-modern product, and whereas this range of commentaries are not my automatic choice, I do think this one is excellent. And I sort of have it close on the shelf to Durham, because whereas Durham is a little bit out of date in terms of when it was originally printed, this one is not. And where the two of them agree with each other, they are a great prop for each other. And I really feel that of the modern commentaries that are out there, that are academic and good quality, I would suggest to you that this is probably the automatic choice. It is for me anyway. I'm not saying this is better than Durham, I'm just saying Durham's a little bit old, this is not old. And the two of them together will give you a lot of strength. That doesn't mean that I don't need the New Beacon Bible Commentary, because I do. It doesn't mean the story of God is in any way diminished, nor does it take away Terence Fretheim's strengths, because he is really, really excellent. But the five of these together are the ones that I go to time and time again when I am looking for developing and preaching work in the book of Exodus. And the other ones I've mentioned to you are definitely worth considering. You know, ultimately, there's nobody that's got the perfect commentary. There is no single author that is the best. These are all men of God, prayerfully, hopefully delivering something that will help us in our understanding of the Bible from an academic point of view. And thank God for all of them. But having a range that we can dip into is, I believe, an ideal situation. If you've only got a couple that you can get, look on the second-hand market for some of these. Fretheim you probably pick up pretty good now. That's an excellent one to start with. And Durham, which is also still quite affordable on the second-hand market, is still one to consider, but not enough for you if you are doing a seminary course or a university course. In a sense, what I've leaned on historically, maybe it's time to move away from. This one, however, and the Beacon Bible Commentary and the Story of Good Commentary, these are up to date and available for quotation. So that's how I would leave it with you. Remember the book of Exodus. Remember when you're studying it to look through some of these commentaries. I hope it helps you. If it does, please give us a like. If you haven't done, please subscribe. And remember to click on the bell, because that will let you know when we release another episode of Pastor's Library. Until the next time, my friends, God bless you. Bye.